Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our recommend or refute episode where we're going to go around the group and each talk about a movie that we saw this week and whether we would recommend or refute it. I am your host, Michael Dixon. With me, as always, Ryan King.
I hope you guys couldn't hear that. There's like shit going on in the background.
What, did you shit in the background? What just happened?
Somebody took a shit in the background. It's very loud.
Oh, God.
I did not hear it, but we can mute you over that time. And
You'll figure it out. Yeah.
I can. You want me to throw it to you again?
It's so embarrassing that somebody shit in the background.
I bet you guys have to go through my audio
please.
between children and dogs, and you guys have to go through my audio and clean it up. So
that's fine. We can do that.
I don't have anything to go on, so I don't know what to.
Okay, and with me, as always, Ryan King.
I don't have a bid. That's my day.
You just gave up. You just gave up.
Yeah, I give up.
I thought you were like, I don't know what to say because you're not like throwing to me.
No.
Okay, well, what are we doing here? Just
like,
say hi.
We're
Just
doing
say something.
Yeah, hi.
Jesus Christ.
How's it going? I'm excited about tonight.
He says with no emotion. Oh, man.
I did not watch The Iron Claw. I did not watch Mind Game.
Yes. Regale us with your confessions. Which flight were you on, and which film did you not watch? Instead?
I'm really excited about Madam Web. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but it's out on Dune.
I heard it was worse than Morbius, which is great.
That sounds
That's a good sign.
Good. That sounds so interesting to me. I actually am saying that with full
this,
truth. Huh? That is not sarcasm.
Please, whatever you do, just don't tell us about watching Madam Web.
He's going to tell us about it. You know he's going to
absolutely tell you about it.
God damn it.
Our other co-host, John Garcia. What's going on?
Hey. I'm excited to talk about sandworms, everybody. We all know what I'm bringing. It's going to be great.
Beetlejuice?
Oh, my. Did you fuck the popcorn bucket? Is that...
Hey, what I do in the privacy of a public theater is my own business.
Oh, okay. I guess when they hand you a sex toy upon going into the theater, like that's an open invitation, right? It's implied that you're supposed to use it when you're in there. You're supposed to butter your popcorn if you catch my drift.
Yeah. Me and Shai Halud, which, by the way, when you're close enough friends, you call him Shai, okay? Me and Shai, we're really close now. Yeah, Shai and I are really close. Shia Halud and Shia LaBeouf. We hang out all the time now.
We're called the Shy Guys.
Yeah. That's right. Anyways, I'm excited to get into another recommend or refute. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Well, Ryan, do you want to kick us off this week and tell us what crappy Netflix kids movie you watched?
Yeah, bring that level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch a crappy Netflix movie. I watched a bunch of Marvel movies. So we're almost like out of kids movies.
So you watched a bunch of crappy kids movies is what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I did enjoy revisiting Infinity War, not the other things so much. Wakanda Forever is all right. But I do want to talk about This Place Rules.
You may have gone to bed thinking this election was headed one way, and then you woke up and saw things were different and trending increasingly in another direction.
Woo! We saved the country!
We did it, Joe.
Joe Biden is the apparent winner in the state of Wisconsin.
My name's Andrew Callaghan, and I first went viral online for interviewing people on the road, going to different conventions, conspiracy rallies, music festivals. Then in 2020, shit got super serious. Protests.
Police brutality, that shit is real.
It's revolution time. Pandemics. Remember that?
Freedom!
So, this is the story of the events that led up to the January 6th Capitol riot.
We are the storm!
As I saw them unfold.
Which is on Max. I think that's what they call it
I heard the pause. You're getting there. You almost got their branding.
Yeah.
No one gets their branding. I mean, no one understands it. It's just
provocative. It gets the people going, Dixon.
This Place Rules is a documentary, as much as you can say just turning a camera on and fucking being there is a documentary. I guess that's the category things fall into.
How dare you disparage Frederick Wiseman like that?
It's definitely gonzo journalism. Andrew Callaghan had a channel on YouTube called All Gas No Brakes, which got bought out. And then he started another channel called Channel 5. And I have watched his shit and been very can't look away from a train wreck, entertained and fascinated by it, until, and I will say at the top here, until his like sexual misconduct, assault / coercion things came up, and I haven't watched anything of his since. And this happened on the heels of his movie that was HBO at the time supported, This Place Rules. So I haven't watched it. It came out in 2022. I was looking forward to it. Then I stopped looking forward to it. And then for whatever reason, it popped into my mind recently, and I went back to watch it because I think it's far enough removed that maybe he doesn't benefit that much from me watching it. And I don't know how to feel about him. So I'll just put that at the top. Now, on the positive sides, and I'll just talk about it straight up since that's out of the way. Callaghan has this amazing ability, and he is a gonzo journalist, which is, for those who aren't necessarily knowing, like Hunter S. Thompson started it. It pretty much is this like disturbingly unfiltered look at things from a journalism standpoint, and often moving into dangerous territory, questionable territory in things that you're covering. Callaghan he sort of started off with just random shit, but he kind of started to focus in and getting into political or just general like protests or rallies. He also goes to like wild fucking Florida spring break or bizarre conferences, including going to like the defense conference where he talked to people who, the best of us that sell weapons around. And yes, just talk to them at the like defense contractor summit. He just lets people be. It is really interesting to watch how well he can just let people be, and how much they put the noose out to hang themselves or whatever you want to feel about it. Just absolutely present who they are to their core and just feel comfortable around him to say shit that you just wouldn't believe. And he never picks a side. So anyway, This Place Rules is kind of like an hour and a half version of one of his YouTube things from All Gas No Brakes or Channel 5, which in this particular instance was leading up to the January 6th attack and a little bit shortly after, as he went to various political rallies, protests, whatever, as well as one fight between a hillbilly and a guy who pretty much tattooed himself following the Joker in the Suicide Squad version.
Oh no.
Yeah. So sometimes he throws in this other random shit in here, but mostly it is focused around the political divide and the extremes. He doesn't really talk to a regular person throughout this documentary. He talks to the extremes for sure. And it, as much as we talked about Thank You for Smoking, kind of like satirizing and not necessarily picking a side, making both sides look bad, Callaghan's stuff feels 100% fucking satirical, and it's not, and then it comes back around to being horrifying. This is like The Onion. Like sometimes you see something, you're like, oh, it's not The Onion. Like, what is it? On Reddit, there's like a Not The Onion where it's like, this should be it. This absolutely, the stuff that he presents, you're like, this can't be real, but it is. And so it's fascinating and train wrecky in that way, and it's hard to stomach at times. There have been videos of his that I've had to be like, nah, I can't with this, and look away. This is an interesting presentation from pre-2020 election to January 6th, or no, am I getting my numbers right? Yeah, essentially right before the election and then to the January 6th attack, and really focused in on those. He talks to Alex Jones at one point, and he manages to get Alex Jones to pretty much just admit he's a fucking fraud and ridiculous, and he knows it, and he knows it's all bullshit. Like, he pretty much just says, like, you feed the people what they want to fucking hear, and like, you make money off of it, you sell your shit, like whatever, and fucking unhinged bullshit, as well as like showing Alex Jones saying his shit, and then after January 6th having to like backtrack as fast as possible so he doesn't get wrapped up in that. He has some conversations with Proud Boys and shows their shit and the backtracking on that. But I will say, on the flip side, he catches people right after the election who are like insane about Biden. and to the direction that went so far. And he goes to some Black Lives Matter protests and some other protests where people fucking physically assault people in MAGA hats or whatever, right? The like negative sides of that, and Antifa, which is a thing. It's maybe not painted what it is painted, and he gets a little into that, but it is a thing, and he talks to some of them, and you wouldn't believe what they say. So it is really fascinating. I don't think it gets to the like Hunter S. Thompson level. There is something else. One, he invented gonzo journalism. It was bringing something completely new to the writing and journalism medium. It's interesting what this brings to like YouTube. I'm not quite sure what it brings to a documentary. And Callaghan, in trying to let people just be, never gets a narrative or presents a side. And in documentaries, that's a tough balance between being fair and giving a narrative and a story and something to come away with from the documentary. Pretty much what you can come away with is like, wow, this is fucking horrifying. That's pretty much the feeling you're going to constantly have during it if you watch it. So yeah, I'm like, it doesn't quite elevate itself to something that's like, you've got to go out of your way and watch it. It's excellent. But if you really want to see the people on the ground, the people who are showing up, like what people are saying at these rallies and protests, the people who go out of their way to go to these things, the disturbing things, the true beliefs that these people have, what they're indoctrinating their children with, and what their kids are saying now, it is a really amazing, unfiltered vision into it that is hard to look away from and hard to stomach. So I do recommend it on what it is. Callaghan's, it's hard to depart the artist and the art. So that going in, then you've got that, I guess. But like, I recommend it. Again, it to me is like his YouTube videos, and I have liked them in the past. It's just a crazy way to see what's really out there.
It sounds interesting compared to, is it Time Bomb Y2K that you talked about?
Yeah, that was, these are, yeah.
Which like they're both kind of, it sounds like this one doesn't have as much of a narrative. That one really didn't have much other than like, hey, check it out.
Clips.
Y2K just happened. Yeah, clips. So is there a comparison in terms of structure? Something that made this one a little bit more like, oh, that shit's real versus Time Bomb Y2K, which you were down on and didn't recommend.
Yeah. Callaghan, so as much as I'm like, oh, he's just completely unfiltered, he does a really good job of juxtaposition where he will show someone saying something completely bizarre and then he will immediately flip to something that points out the hypocrisy of it. Now, he does it on all fronts. So, a bit where we were talking about with Thank You for Smoking, it's like seeing the bullshit and then seeing like, you can be like, hey, the other side's showing their bullshit too, like there. So he does kind of do a good job of editing things together to show the true insanity of all of it. Y2K, the documentary, there was a bit of some of the insanity and the hypocrisy, but because they put it on like a timeline and never really like put these things next to each other to be like, here's what one person's saying and here's what another is saying, and isn't that weird how like, or here's what they're saying and here's what they're saying another time and how those conflict. It just kind of gave it. And honestly, all of the things in the Y2K documentary were already through news, right? So they have a slant. They come in slanted, and then they're slanted a little bit more by being presented to you. Where with this, it is so unfiltered that it does give you something new to get directly from them. And so I think that's what makes it a little bit different from that. And he will comment a bit here and there, and he will kind of say a few things to help give some context or some direction to it. And I do feel like that was what was missing on the Y2K documentary, is like, it didn't really give context to the things that probably needed them, especially like long post Y2K. It would be interesting to revisit this 20 years from now and see if like it did give enough feeling to like what was going on at the time comparatively. This is obviously still relevant, very relevant, and very much in our like memories compared to Y2K, where I'm like, lots of people don't remember that. Like I remember that.
Yeah.
But like right now, there's, you know, very few people who don't necessarily remember that time period.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the structure of the movie. Like, does it take place like at the Capitol on January 6th? Like, is he interviewing people that are right there outside as they are charging in and everything that's going on? And like, is it just a series of interviews? Does it turn into a more journalistic piece? Like, how's it kind of set up and edited together?
Most of the time, what Callaghan does is stand there in his beige suit.
It's like a size too big.
He is a little too big, and he looks a little awkward, and he just puts a microphone out, and people say fucking insane shit into it, and every once in a while, he kind of says something to prompt them to go again, and he has no reaction in a spot that I'm like, I couldn't fucking possibly stand there and not laugh and or run for safety.
Yeah.
is insane what he will go into, and that's that gonzo journalism going into fucking Hell's Angels type of shit that he does sometimes. But where I get it is like he will mix with actually showing some news to kind of give it that context, or in the case of January 6th, he was there, but he does present not just like the interviews that he did, but the actual speeches that like Giuliani gave and Trump gave to give some context to that, or the Proud Boys, or what they said on the news. Mm-hmm. You know, he shows some clips from like Trump talking previously and what he said, and then shows clips of like people in January, like in the Capitol, like what they were doing, fucking breaking windows, saying crazy shit that they said. And so that helps contextualize, like when he talks to a person and then shows like, this is kind of what that person went and did, and this is kind of where that person got these ideas. It gives you a much better rounded idea of that. That I think if you just like show the interview, it wouldn't necessarily give you, unless you kind of knew everything, which is most of the time on his YouTube stuff. It is kind of just that. He talks to somebody, you know, or a few people at a place, and you kind of just get it. They always rap.
Everybody raps.
Everybody fucking raps.
There's so many, so many of his videos. There has not been one video where he hasn't found somebody who raps for him for like no reason.
And they rap in this for fucking no reason. So
I knew it.
Yeah,
they'll just bust a flow
still got
about
it.
anything. He found dudes that rapped at the Flat Earth Society, at like a Trump rally, at like, it's just wild.
Is there any new January 6th footage that he captured that is interesting or provides any sort of different perspective on the riot or anything like that?
I would say not really. You're really getting like some more individual people that were there and kind of like, here's what they said.
He did have a sit-down interview with the shaman later, right? Is that in?
Yeah, that's not in this.
This? Okay.
Yeah, that's not in this. He does have this. He has a sit-down with Alex Jones. Otherwise, it's random people. You have no fucking clue. Or no, he does talk to the Proud Boy. He talks to the one of the first or second. I think like he was at one
the
time
proudest
the first,
boy.
The proud
one
boy.
of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, he talks to that guy and he talks to Alex Jones, and otherwise it's random, just absolutely random people. I don't know how he gets the okay to not blur these people's faces after what they say. I guess because they believe it. Again, I'm like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, they believe it so hard.
They probably sign the waiver before they say the shit, right?
You don't even have to sign a waiver. You just have to say it on camera that you're okay with that, and then you hold on to that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and
so
I guess
like,
they're
I'm pretty sure
and
that
don't come back
I
around.
know that a lot of his interviews, people will be like, "Are you with the mainstream media?" And he's like, "No, I'm with Channel 5." And they're like, "Which channel?" Like he tried to do that with, is it Ron Paul?
Like to act like he's a local
Rand
journalist
Paul,
or something.
He went to some fucking Republican convention too, and like they were like, "Which Channel 5 are you with?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a YouTube channel." They're like, "Oh yeah, totally, I'm cool with it." Or it was like one of the Trump cabinet members. Fucking, I can't even remember who. But it's amazing. Like they were just like, "Oh, okay, then you're fine."
Was it Anthony Scaramucci?
It was not Scaramucci.
No.
It wasn't the mooch.
He was my favorite. So good.
And his YouTube channels have had decent follow, enough that like the All Gas No Brakes got bought out by some, I don't know, media something. They've done absolutely fucking nothing with the channel afterwards because no one these like giant companies have no fucking clue how things work.
No.
And like he argued with him and then he just left and he made his own channel, has picked up every follower that was on his previous channel, and that previous channel's done fucking nothing. So yeah, no, I think it is interesting. Like, it really is interesting to hear it directly from these people. And it isn't like you're going to their YouTube channel or listening to Alex Jones. The fact that you can have these things somewhat contextualized against these other pieces is what kind of pulls it away from it being their platform and puts it into this more unfiltered sense. And I'll be honest, like, I think generally Callaghan is against most of this extreme Republican, extreme conservative, evangelical nationalism stuff. He never says it, and it's never right out, and he will present the other things. But it definitely, we'll say if it has any slant, it feels slanted against them, coming from a person who's slanted against them in the first place. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
If it's just like, I listen to it, and I'm like, that's bullshit, and I hear the other side, and I'm like, well, that person's taking a little bit of leaps, and they should chill out. But like, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. That's how you know. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. So you're recommending this?
I do recommend it. And I think this is probably the best way to see something of his content and get a better narrative around it. Because I think if you watch probably just about anything from his YouTube channel, you will have no idea how to feel about it unless you watch like a few of his videos and you start to get into like okay, I see where this is going. I do recommend him going to the Flat Earth Conference. That's a good one. If you don't believe in Flat Earth, that's a good one to go to. If you do,
was Kyrie Irving
I can't
there?
Help you? No, yeah, right.
I don't think so.
I took a photo out of a plane. It's bullshit. He talks to some of those people though, for sure.
Yeah.
Or the one he goes to the Crystal. Isn't there one he goes to this like?
There's one who went
Crystal
to Michigan
Healing
too,
or whatever.
Mask mandate protests, and he watches all the people get on the microphone and talk about how bullshit the shutdown is, and
he has a mask on. He's brave.
Yeah.
He did get COVID though from one of the rallies he went to. So.
Oh no.
Oh man.
Cool. All right, John, what do you got for us?
Well, I said I was bringing some stuff with Sand and Shai Hulud and Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf's not in the movie that I watched. So, of course, with Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 being out in theaters, how could I not go see it? And then immediately after, think about, again, David Lynch's Dune in 1984.
You are about to enter a world where the unexpected.
Many dangers exist on Arrakis.
The unknown.
An incredible secret has been kept on this planet.
And the unbelievable meet.
I see two great houses.
Where kingdoms are built on earth that moves.
But we have worm sign the likes of which even God has never seen.
And skies are filled with fire.
The prophecy which will cleanse the universe and bring us out of darkness.
Dino De Laurentiis presents Dune, a world beyond your experience, beyond your imagination.
David Lynch does not claim that movie.
Well, his name's certainly there. I know in some cuts, Alan Smithy claims that movie. Alan Smithy's done a lot.
Prolific.
But yeah, Dixon, you and I were talking at one point recently, and you were like, who the fuck would watch Dune 84 in 4K? Who wants this? I want this.
After that conversation, did you go out and buy it, or did you already own it?
I think I already owned it when you made that. It was sitting in my shelf. It had shipped in already, and I was like, yeah, who would fucking watch
You
that?
have like that Arrow special edition that's like 3 inches thick
gorgeous.
And has like a book and all this stuff. And
yeah.
I remember when that came out, I was like, who would put so much care into this fucking pile of shit movie? And there were all these people saying, oh, this is the 4K release of the year. Oh my God, it's so good. I'm like, but it's Dune. Why would you like I understand if it's a good movie that goes from, oh yeah, it's great, you should buy it, but it's Dune.
It's one of those movies where like the the history of it, the production value put into it, everything about it to me is fascinating. And it's also like from a visual effects perspective, really cool and impressive. I mean, it's not now from a, like we have way better. The shield scene in the new Dune, come on. The fucking 84's Dune they're like fucking mega blocks fighting or some shit. But yeah, Dune 84, for folks out there who don't know, is basically just David Lynch was picked after Jodorowsky was ousted from trying to direct an insane adaptation of Dune.
They picked a slightly less insane director.
Yeah, Dino De Laurentiis' daughter saw The Elephant Man and was like, Dad, we should get David Lynch to direct the Dune movie. And so they brought David Lynch in, and he brought like a lot of people who would then go on to be in other David Lynch shit. And so when you you can't have David Lynch's Dune, like you can't have all the things that you like about David Lynch without having David Lynch's Dune, unfortunately.
Right.
Like,
you don't have Kyle MacLachlan in Blue Velvet or Twin Peaks if you don't have that movie.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's so much to like be thankful for from it. But it's one of those things where like, I totally get it. People watch it and they're like, fuck this movie. It's bizarre and weird, and I feel like it has a lot of really cool shit that Lynch was able to work out. But I also know Lynch is on record saying that he absolutely hates like the experience. It was a nightmare, and he doesn't really talk too much beyond that about it. And I also know there's a 5-hour cut of it that was made, and then the studio came in and was like, fuck that. We're going to make this 2 hours and like 20 minutes.
Yep.
And so it's just completely butchered, and it tells basically all of what Dune Part 1 and Part 2 tells from Denis Villeneuve. So, and it does it in a much sloppier way, and it actually falls apart right around the time that Dune Part 1 ends. It's like the exact same timing. Like it's pretty solid up until then if you know the story. But then towards the end of it, it's like all this fucking wild shit's going on, and they just like run you through so much of it where they're like, Paul, he like met Chani and he fell in love with her and all this other shit happens. Now Patrick Stewart's got a fucking pug and he's running out into battle. Like, why not? And the other thing that I learned about Dune was that Frank Herbert was an extreme homophobe, which, I didn't read Dune. I don't really know a whole lot about that part. I know Frank Herbert's son was gay because I read a whole article about how Herbert just put a shit ton of homophobic shit into the Dune universe, and like the Harkonnen family were just representative of gay people. There's a lot of like boy love that they had. They were pedophiles, but like also they, at least in Herbert's mind, this was like what he would see as villainizing gay people. And that's why in like Lynch's version, there's a whole lot of sexuality pumped up in the Harkonnen family. It's like Sting comes out in like a bikini. Yeah, fucking Baron Harkonnen is like, oh yeah, that's fate. Oh yeah, and like that weird shit. But I mean, I really like it. It's a guilty pleasure at this point, I suppose. But I like the ham-fisted fucking whisper talking that everybody does. It's really wild.
Here we are now, Caladan, and 19 light years beyond beneath lilacs. Dune, desert planet.
The sleeper must awaken.
The dragon calls me. Muad'Dib.
He's trying the voice.
The drug.
The Reverend Mother said it could save him.
The doctor.
Can't kill.
I don't my unborn.
What did you say? Suspense is full of Jessica. Someday I will have to do
that they just decided the audience was too dumb to understand what's going on in Dune, but also they were trying to cut it down so fast that then they were like, maybe if you just like ASMR'd your way through this movie, it would work out for everybody. And it's just like, no, that still doesn't really help. The info dumps and all of that, but like the sets, the miniatures they use, like the perspective, I don't know. Dixon, you saw it at one point, right?
Yes.
Recently?
No, okay. It was back when I first started really going through David Lynch's stuff. This was probably like, I don't know, 8 years ago. So it's been a while since I've seen it. I just remember being like, this is not a David Lynch movie. What the fuck is this? This is so bad and so strange and like too many words that I don't know what they mean. And didn't really think much about it after that.
Yeah, I think I had another friend who went and they played it in the IMAX.
Really?
I think at some point one of them went to see it in IMAX. I'm pretty sure. I remember somebody telling me about that, and I was like, that shit would have been both wild and really fucking confusing if that was the only time you ever saw it.
Yeah.
But there's so much cool shit about it because there's like I don't know if you remember, there's like they have a gigantic like fetus in a jar. That's like one of the guild navigators. It's like they like wheel him in at the very beginning. It's this big old tank and it's got a huge like melted fetus thing in it. It's one of the spice navigators. And there's like little dudes around him with like a shop vac that are like cleaning up the water. And I'm like, this is like
this sounds vaguely familiar shit. Actually.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's like visually striking and like, what the fuck is this? And there are so many parts of it that I can see why Lynch would be picked to do it. And I also know that Lynch knew nothing about Dune going into it. And he's on record as saying that the reason he took the job is because he saw a lot of potential to play with things he wanted to play with from a feature and like visual standpoint. And so like watching the Gom Jabbar scene and you're seeing like Kyle MacLachlan's hand get like melted off and like Lynch is playing with like really fucking fever dream, like layered over layered film sequences. It's still cool. Even if Lynch doesn't like it and he hated that experience, I see so much of things that he learned to take forward that I feel like it's important to not ignore it as a film. So I liked it. I enjoyed it. Now that I know what Dune is, because Denis Villeneuve came through and told it in a much more succinct and understandable narrative way where you're bought in to most of that. I can go back and actually follow along with the characters and what's going on. And it's not as much of a disorienting mess. It just feels better. And it's interesting to see the juxtaposition now too, given that you have two completely different styles representing these films and the story. But yeah, I was excited to go back to it, and I have a whole bunch of like special features, and there's a booklet, of course, with essays that are all about like, one of them is titled like Lynch's failure, and like it's supposed to be more of like glorifying. It's talking about that ripple effect that it had, and the score too, like Denis Villeneuve's score is great. I like Hans Zimmer. I mean, he does great scores, but the fact that Dino De Laurentiis went and did like Flash Gordon and got fucking Queen, and then he was like, yeah, fuck it, do Dune. Get Toto in here and have them compose the score. It's just, I don't know. It's got a really rousing and rad score to it. And it also has really tense scenes that I didn't remember it having, like the Hunter Seeker dart. Still really intense from like just the way that Lynch's film language works. So there's parts of it I really loved and parts of it I liked and parts that obviously really messy, but altogether, I don't know. I'm into it. It's good.
Yeah, I think it was one of those that people look back and were like, at the time, or later, I remember being like, oh, it's an unmakeable movie. Like that's why Dune, didn't work. Yeah. And we've moved into the territory of apparently it's a very makeable movie. So many things that were originally like unmakeable, like the Lord of the Rings, have come around to be makeable and excellent. But I think it more shows why you don't get that kind of director to adapt something unless that something is really in their wheelhouse or style. And this is early Lynch. Like he's kind of had, an independent film that got him on the map.
Yep.
A somewhat produced film that was really excellent. He gets pitched to a big project and fucking bombs. And then picks up another independent, and I don't know how the fuck he got Twin Peaks. But then after that, it's all whatever he wants to do. But I don't know. And really, I think it's just that there were people who saw his stuff and are like, he can do something if I just give him free reign that's like impossible to look away from. And I guess Twin Peaks was pitched well enough and put together and then was just off to the races. But yeah, like I'm surprised that he was able to rebound from Dune. It is Lynchian, and it is interesting to see what he does with the material and give you, in a way, he gives you this sort of like, it's a future that you can't necessarily understand, on worlds you can't really fully grip with, which is some of it, but kind of then takes away from like giving you an understanding of what the fuck is actually going on. Yeah. and trying to adapt something. This is another one of those, something that's too long to jam into a movie.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a telltale 90s and 2000s thing where like they would take something that was way too large and jam it into like, well, we got to get one movie out of it. Just because it's one book.
Yeah, they, now we have the exact opposite problem where they make as many movies out of something as they possibly can.
Can I get
because
5
they can
movies
just keep
out
selling
of this?
tickets.
What's that there's like that Onion thing where it was like the last 2 minutes of the Harry Potter franchise will be split up into 10 movies. Oh man. Yeah. But I mean, I appreciate it. It's wild to me because I see a lot of people comparing them, especially, obviously anytime that a new remake is put out, you get comparisons. It's like it happened with RoboCop. It happens with other films. The difference is that like Dune 84 was like critically panned. It failed. It flopped. All of those things. It has been denounced by its director. But you still have people out there that are like, oh, the new Denis Villeneuve is like way better than that ever could be. And it's like, what? Like, no, that wasn't the popular opinion anyway. It's like you're like punching down in a way. And so then you have this other crowd that comes out of the woodwork to just be like, you're fucking wrong. This movie is better. This movie will be these things. And I'm just like, hey, can't we all just enjoy that there are completely two different directorial visions and one of them led to David Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan being together? Come on, everybody. Let's get together. Like, fuck it. And now I can't, I've been like the past 2 weeks, I've just been walking around whispering things about what other people may think or what they might know, because it's just
Does
fun.
that mean you're doing like the Bene Gesserit voice to people?
Oh no, I'm not doing to do the voice. That would be a whole. That's where I have to like raise my voice and layer it multiple times and be like, "Come here,
watch your 1984."
yeah. You will watch. Come and sit. No, but now it's more if I enter in a room and I'm like, he knows about the Dune. He knows about Dune 1984. I also forgot there was like a whole departure where they give everybody guns that like use words to destroy shit.
I don't remember that.
they're like they're like Muad'Dib, but it like destroys a rock, and Kyle MacLachlan's like, has my name become a killing word? Oh my god. You're like, okay. Yeah, really wild departures. But also, look up that clip if you haven't seen it of Patrick Stewart carrying a pug to war. It's hilarious.
That's funny. Yeah, I just saw Dune 2 the other day. I finally got around to it and like really enjoyed it. I kind of felt very similar as I did about the Villeneuve's first Dune, which it was like, it looks incredible and it sounds great. And I kind of don't care about what's happening with the characters on screen. And like, I don't know that the story is very interesting. And, I haven't read the books. I'm sure it's told better on the page. But yeah, I don't know. There's too many characters and there's too many weird proper nouns to mean the same thing. I'm like, is he the Kwisatz Haderach, or is he the Lisan al-Gaib, or is he the Muad'Dib? Like, these are so many fucking, was like, you all mean the same thing, don't you? You fucking trying to trick me. You all mean the same thing. It honestly helps when I rewatched the first Dune recently in preparation for the second one, and I was like, I watched it with subtitles. I was like, this is very helpful. I now know what these words mean. These random whispers in the score are actually saying some of these weird words, and I'm like able to piece this together a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have anything to say about Dune 1984, but the new Dunes are like, they're very polished and well done. But I'm like, I don't even really know if I find the story very interesting. We'll see with when it finishes with Dune 12 or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the third one, because it's like this is one of those series where I feel like if the third one is what it's supposed to be, then it'll stick the landing, and I will like the entire trilogy.
That's kind of where I am too. I'm like, if they take this in an interesting direction, it will recontextualize everything that's come.
I'll be honest, as a person that really enjoys science fiction, I'll be honest that Dune is kind of just a Jesus allegory. It's an excuse to invent a language, which the fact that the book comes with like a glossary at the back with all of the words that have been made up and an explanation of the language is something. And Tolkien did the same thing, but accidentally made a really amazing World War II allegory.
Dune or something?
But that was where they were very back and forth about language and shit like that. And he was also all in it C.S. Lewis's shit too, which was an excuse to sell religion. But still, sometimes you can come out with something decent when you're trying to do something else. And Dune is entertaining, but like it is really just one giant excuse to make up a bunch of fucking proper nouns.
Yeah.
Way too many proper nouns.
I know that like the more that I've learned about Frank Herbert and the fact that like, well, one, what his homophobia put into the pages, it's like, it makes sense. He was like a writer for, I think a Republican senator at one point.
Oh, really?
And that was like that formed like part of, he was also military, like pro-military, that kind of thing. But he was also kind of an anarchist.
It's
or
weird.
Like libertarian.
I don't get that from Dune anyway.
Well, like he wrote Dune as like you should question authority. You should question like the Messiah, basically. Like he didn't like that concept of it. And so like everything that Paul does, Paul was supposed to be likable to a point, but like also he wanted to write Paul in the way that it was a Jesus allegory, but that if you actually read the subtext of it, everything that Paul does is really fucked up and eventually leads to like holy war and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the later Dune books
he
definitely
wrote Messiah
turn it around
because people didn't understand what he was trying to do with Paul's character, and they all liked Paul too much.
Right.
And he was like, I need to write another book that deconstructs how awful Paul's actual leadership is and what this means. And I was like, oh, that's like that Starship Troopers problem.
Yeah. That's basically what I got from Dune 2. It's like, it seems like they're setting this up to go horribly wrong and him to just become corrupt and evil. And I don't know. We'll see.
Waiting
eventually,
for that. So,
eventually you get to that end where Jesus comes back with the sword and fucks everybody up.
Yeah, that's right. Nicolas Cage is on a plane and he's the pilot. And anyways, Dune 1984, if you're curious about it, you've already seen the new Dunes and you know the names, the proper nouns, and what happens, it might be interesting to go check it out. I recommend it because it's certainly an experience. One way or another, you come out the other end being like, holy fuck, what the hell was that?
Yeah. Or check out other David Lynch movies. Go watch Eraserhead.
Yeah. I have to think, John, that if you watch Dune, the new Dune, and then Lynch's Dune, and then Jodorowsky's Dune documentary, that you'll have an amazing appreciation for Jodorowsky's Dune insanity.
You just like roll the timeline back. Yeah, exactly. And then watch El Topo.
To see the version with Orson Welles as the Harkonnen dude.
Oh man, that would have been great. Instead, we didn't get that. We just had to get Unicron, where he fucking wheezed on the mic, and they put him through a synthesizer for that Transformers movie. Anyways, Dixon, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so the reason I took so long to get to Dune 2 is because I was at South by Southwest for 9 days going to different movies. I wasn't able to get any time off of work, but I went on the weekends and in the evenings and saw 14 different movies at South by Southwest this year. South by Southwest is a festival that is kind of having an identity crisis. You know, like it started out as an art festival that was about music and film. And then all of a sudden, they started having this interactive part of the festival, which basically means let's get a bunch of rich tech bros together so they can jerk each other off and talk about bad ideas.
Hell yeah.
And bring their startups that don't have any money but act like they do and they're going to save the world.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. The fact that I've worked for companies that have purposely set up like booths at South by Southwest, that makes no fucking sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Even big companies are now like sponsoring stuff, right? It's not just a tech thing anymore. It's like South by Southwest, brought to you by Bank of America. And you're like, what the fuck is
Come to the
going
LaCroix room and the Cheetos experience.
Right, yeah. Like McDonald's is a big... Like, this year, Raytheon was a sponsor. And there were a bunch of Free Palestine protests going on. So that was cool. I don't know. It feels like a festival that's just kind of crawled up its ass to the point where like it doesn't really know what it is anymore, and like a lot of the commerce that it's promoting is very much at odds with the art that it's promoting. For instance, you know, every film screening they show an edited clip of that's like 90 seconds long of some of the big events from the previous day at the festival. And it's never like a clip from a concert or a clip from a Q&A at a movie. It's always just a bunch of stupid ass tech bros getting in front of large crowds at the convention center talking about how AI is going to save the world. And it's just like I'm at a film festival watching this, right? And it's like that's the thing that we're all worried about in movies, right? That's they're going to take the jobs of actors and writers and all these things. So I don't really know what the fuck they're trying to do with the festival as a whole. One of their big keynote speakers this year. Yeah, exactly. One of the big keynote speakers this year was Meghan Markle. I'm like, who the fuck wants to hear from Meghan Markle? It's like, this is the dumbest fucking shit.
Oh, that was okay. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were there?
Yeah, well, at least Meghan Markle was.
She's talking about her
the
privacy.
The first day of South by was International Women's Day. So everybody wants to hear about women's rights from the fucking princess of shit land. Like, ridiculous. Anyway, the film festival.
You really feel.
The film festival. I saw 14 movies this year. Overall, there are like 120 movies every year at the festival. I saw 14 of them. It's hard to say like generally how the quality is from year to year because it's just such a small sample size. I did feel like the movies that I saw were a little bit lower quality than the ones I've seen in previous years. So both on the top end and on the bottom end of what I saw. And also it was a lot more crowded than it's been in previous years. So it was harder to get into things. So that was kind of a shitty combination where it was just kind of harder to navigate. And the stuff that I did get into wasn't as good as kind of what I was hoping. The worst movie I saw was a movie called Switch Up that I am shocked was not produced by the Hallmark Channel. It was like one of the worst movies that I have ever seen at a festival. And I was just absolutely shocked that it was playing there. It screened at the Paramount, like the premier location at the festival. And it was just like, how the fuck did this get past the screeners? This is bad that this is actually playing here.
That's the poster, right?
Oh, wow. That, yeah.
It's really bad. It's about a talk show host who ends up losing his show because of bad ratings and getting sabotaged by his producer and ends up getting stuck in Brownsville, Texas at a homeless shelter and has to learn a little bit about himself and maybe fall in love with the lady that runs it. And,
massive biceps.
Yeah.
The fuck?
And it might take place over Christmas. Sounds right.
It does not take place over Christmas, shockingly.
That's why it's not on the Hallmark
July.
Channel. Almost there.
Yeah. Dear Lord, what a terrible movie.
8.7 out of 10 on IMDb? That's a fucking no.
Oh, wow.
There's no way.
Wow. The Letterboxd score, when I rated it, was very bad, but I don't know what it is right now. The best movie that I saw was a movie that completely came out of left field. I was not expecting to be that interested in. John, yes, do you have a
Sorry, I just wanted to read. Can I read a 9 out of 10 review score for the Switch Up to you?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Heartfelt and funny! !
It's not either of those things.
This movie was very enjoyable to watch. It was funny and had some very touching moments. I loved the dinner scenes because it shows how family is more than who you're related to. It's about connection, acceptance, and love. The look into the homelessness was a nice touch because it showed us a side that we never see and how we shouldn't judge people so quickly. I'm just going to stop.
Yeah.
Not written by an AI.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It's really bad. I don't think it will be like available soon. But if
Available
it is,
now.
if it happens to be on like the Lifetime network, don't watch it.
Anyways, sorry I interrupted.
No,
you.
you're good. Movie that I saw that I liked the best was one I was not expecting to really be into. I saw it because it was just kind of worked out with my schedule and I wanted to see something, so I went and checked it out. But South by has a section of the festival that is just music documentaries, which is kind of cool. It's like its own category at the festival, given that there's a music festival, they do that. Sometimes they can be interesting. A lot of times music documentaries can be kind of cookie cutter and like you sort of know what to expect going into it. And so this was about a musician I had never heard of and I didn't really know what I was going into, but I figured it'll be the normal music documentary. It's called Dory Previn, On My Way to Where.
My name is Julia Greenberg and I am directing a movie about Dory Previn. And I learned that there existed this singular voice in American music history who not only wrote 5 of the most off-the-hook, brilliant honest singer-songwriter albums from the 70s. But before that was pitching and writing songs for Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, with her then husband, Andre Previn. And we feel that the moment has come for Dory's rediscovery. You've been hearing a lot about underground singer-songwriters who never got their due. It's time for Dory Previn.
Dory Previn is a musician who kind of started to make a name for herself in Hollywood in the 50s and 60s. Her husband was a composer, and she would write lyrics for his songs. And she was nominated for a couple Academy Awards and, had a pretty good career doing that. Her husband then left her for Mia Farrow, and she was kind of at a loss for what to do with herself at that point, and she began experiencing a lot of mental health issues. Then she ended up writing she still wanted to write lyrics, and she was just kind of writing what was going on in her head, and ended up thinking, you know what, these would actually make some good songs. She tried to find a composer to make those songs for her, and everybody she talked to was like, this is too weird. Like, you can't put this out there publicly. Like, I can't write music for this. This is too strange. And so she taught herself guitar and began a solo music career. Kind of in the 70s was when she was most prolific. She came out with 7 or 8 albums in the 70s. And she had a crippling fear of flying, so she was kind of limited in what she could do from a touring standpoint. But while she's doing this and writing music and kind of gaining in her career, she is dealing with crippling mental issues to the point where she is hearing voices, and they are very, very real to her. And there are specific characters that she is hearing in her mind and she's having conversations with. And she has these very intimate journals that the movie takes, and they have somebody kind of narrate her journal entries. And she has drawn pictures of these characters in her journals, and they have somebody come in and animate those characters as someone is reading her journal. And it's really interesting the way they put it together, but it's less of a music documentary and more of an exploration into this person's mental health and how she's able to deal with that. And, the way she's able to kind of get over her issues is not by trying to fix them, but by embracing them. And it's an interesting, I don't know a ton about, hallucinations or voices or how best to deal with it, but she was institutionalized several times, tried to be on medication to get the voices to stop. And she realized that the only way she could move forward is by accepting the voices and admitting to herself that they were real to her, maybe not to anybody else, but she just had to live with these characters inside of her. And it's a very kind of inspiring story about how she's able to come to this conclusion and to get people around her in her life who will support her in that decision. She ends up remarrying to someone who is supportive of her. It's like, look, okay, I don't hear these voices, but if you say they're there, I will believe you and support you in whatever you need to do with this. And just a fascinating story. Like, once she ends up making that decision, she's able to kind of become a lot more stable person, overcome her fear of flying, and do other things and become a lot more successful human being because she's able to accept the reality that she has to deal with and then move forward in her life. And so I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if it's going to get picked up or be available anywhere. It's a very small movie. This was its world premiere at South by. The director said that they finished the movie like 2 weeks before the festival. So this thing is hot off the presses, and I don't know what will happen on the distribution side, but if you do see it out there somewhere in the next few months or year or so, I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's just a very interesting approach to a music doc or a mental health movie. It's called Dory Previn, On My Way to Where.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. I like that, combining both the music and her history and the mental health and digging into that. And just, at least increasing awareness. I feel really positive about the fact that it feels like the last 10, maybe 20 years, the increasing focus on mental health and seeking help and trying to understand it. And sounds like another one to kind of give at least a positive stance on getting through it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm really fascinated by the acceptance factor of it, because usually you get, the usual reduction of like either you're medicated or you have a tragic ending.
Right.
And how your mental, state goes. So I definitely want to check this out. I saw on IMDb it doesn't have any ratings or reviews yet. So obviously hot off the presses. When did they say anything about like what the timeline is for distribution, or
no? Like this was they were showing it off for the first time at the festival, so they were like still trying to get distribution. So I'm not sure, how those conversations have gone and where
sounds
things
like they
are
were just put out what they
point.
had, and we're going to see what happens.
Yep. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about going to festivals, right? Sometimes you'll see a movie that, you're like, wow, that was really great. And you will just never be able to find it again. It's just like, you start doubting whether you actually saw it, whether it actually existed.
This, continues to back up the fact that I think that Tubi will eventually be our savior. Tubi will surface all.
Undoubtedly so. But yeah, I thought it was a fascinating approach to mental health and what it was trying to say. There was actually a person in the audience who asked a question afterward that was like, I feel like you are really downplaying the effects of schizophrenia, and then you are acting like it's not a serious thing, and you can just say, fuck the meds and the doctors and just go live your life. And that's a really dangerous message to say. And I feel like the movie was really flippant. And the director was like, look, we are just trying to tell Dory's perspective of the story. Like, we're telling it from her journals. There's not a lot of talking heads. It's a lot of just her telling her own story through her journals or through interviews.
And she passed away in 2012. So it's like,
yes, she's been passed for a while. Her family reviewed all of this and signed off on the movie, and her husband is still alive. And, he was, signed off on how they portrayed everything. So it's like they tried to do right by her and do the best they could there. And I think with these types of situations with mental health, it's like everybody has to handle these things their own way and figure out what's going to work best for them. And the same prescription is not always going to work for everybody. So
yeah,
that sounds like somebody who hasn't seen A Beautiful Mind.
Honestly,
yeah. Well,
That's
and
funny.
it is difficult. At least I'll be like, historically, you just had, that was the bad guy, that was the serial killer, right, for schizophrenia or psychopathy, to now at least try to present that like there's a range there of, dangerous to just, something that somebody's dealing with, and there are resolutions and there aren't resolutions, and it changes over your lifetime. Like, it should just be presented more honestly and realistic, because it will allow someone to then seek help or understanding with their condition.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost is more critical to be like, that's not a good example.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I
have to be like, that person doesn't have schizophrenia to be saying that shit. So that's even more like, what do you call it? Neurotypical savior? Is that like the white savior equivalent?
Yeah. And it's also like she was diagnosed with schizophrenia in like the 60s or 70s, right? And the filmmaker was like, we've actually talked to... Right. The filmmaker was like, we've actually talked to mental health doctors as part of making this movie. And everyone that we talked to said they actually don't think she had schizophrenia from what they can tell from her journals and stuff. And like, they don't necessarily know what mental disorder she had, if there was a specific term for it. But
it's like mental, like you look at DSM, it changes fucking constantly, and things that they used to have they don't have anymore. And like hallucinations are a symptom of a lot of different things, and every illness is complicated, and usually mental health comes with multiple presentations. It isn't even with like something that is more prevalent, like ADD, ADHD, usually there's some other stuff with it too. It isn't really just like, oh, you have it and it's straightforward. Even that presents itself differently, and often is prevalent in people who have other afflictions.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment to plug two other things in just modern art that are about, or like just for mental health awareness and that kind of stuff. There's a YouTube channel called Special Books, Special Kids, I think is what it's called. And it's like this man that I just assume the cynic in me thinks that there's something like shady about it, just because I'm a cynic in that way, but he goes to like house to house across America and interviews people who have disabilities and mental disorders. And he literally just sets the camera up and asks them questions. He's like the friendliest fucking dude. Ask them questions for 30 minutes to get their like life experience and try to establish like empathetic connection between him and the audience. It's a very small, independently funded channel. They don't have sponsors. And I found it on like a lark, just kind of it recommended one time. And he like has interviewed people who have like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. He's interviewed people who have been diagnosed as sociopaths, like people who were part of like fetal alcohol syndrome. Oh, wow. And it's like just fucking saintly work and really amazing to watch. And of course you have people who are dissenters that say that he does it for like exploitative views and that, but has no sponsorships, does it all himself, has like a Patreon to kind of fund his trips and travel to continue to expose those things. And I just found it to be like really inspiring. So it sounds like it's kind of a similar vein of like getting another person's perspective out, getting that kind of exposure. And then the other thing was there's a video game called Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. It's all about a woman grieving who goes through psychosis, and like the entire game studio partnered with like a psychology institute and researched what like that kind of the effects of that kind of psychosis would be. And it's like an entire mental health thing, but it's set in like a Norse mythology setting. So it's really fascinating to kind of play through that game. Very cinematic too. Like it looks like a movie. It's really fucking great. But those are like two things that I think were both built to like two different avenues of ingesting kind of media to help you empathize with people who think differently than you. And I want more of this. I like this. It sounds great. Yeah. So that's cool, man.
Cool. I did want to mention one other movie. My second favorite movie that I saw was called Smugglers, and I feel like that might actually get released. And so, like, you know, if you want to see something like you want to hear about something you could actually see, it's a Korean film.
I thought it was a Hardy Boys film.
Yeah, they're all about smugglers, Dad.
Not this one. The Pirates of Smugglers Cove. It's about pirates. Anyways,
I actually just found out today that there is a Hardy Boys TV show because on my girlfriend's Hulu, it came up as a suggestion. I was like, oh my god, what?
No, they're in amazing. They're in that stage where they're trying to make like a universe. I'm not fucking making this up. That's like the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, and the other. I'm not making this up 100%. Anyway.
That's very dumb. Anyway, Smugglers is not about the Hardy Boys. It is a Korean film that it's basically like a heist movie is how it's kind of shot and set up. There's lots of double cross and theft and stuff that comes into play. But it's about... I think it's set, maybe in like the early 2000s or so. And there is, I guess, a lot of tax coming into the country on importing like gold and jewels and things like that. And there are a lot of rich people that don't take kindly to that sort of thing. And there's this crew of female divers that work in the fishing industry that go down and dive down and free dive and get like oysters and shit and fish and bring them up, and they sell them at the local market. But that industry starts to kind of go bad because of like environmental concerns. Like the fish aren't as good and there are fewer of them. So they end up hooking up with some people who want to smuggle some shit into the country. And like, hey, there's this little cove that nobody really monitors. Just drop your payload over here into the ocean. We'll swim down and get it, and we'll bring it in at like the fishing dock, and people won't notice it, and we can get it in for you. And there's this group that's doing that, and there's the cop who wants to crack down on smuggling that is like out to get them, and they're trying to avoid law enforcement while running this smuggling operation. And there are double crosses and people teaming up from other sides, and like a lot of kind of heisty plot devices that are like kind of dumb, but they're fun. And it's a movie that just kind of moves pretty fast. It's edited really well, and it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it's a very fun ride from start to finish. It's not like Bong Joon-ho a Korean movie, but it's very well done, and I'm guessing it will probably get U.S. distribution. So I would be on the lookout for that one. Kind of more traditional, something that you would see in American cinema. So, like in American cinemas.
There you go.
So they did the astrologer thing. They put like all of the stuff in 9 different locations underwater.
They played the Moody Blues music to bring it to the surface.
So yeah, that was my South by experience this year. Those are 3 of the 14 movies that I watched.
Follow Dixon on Letterboxd for the others.
Yes, at Dixon00 on Letterboxd, I made a ranked list of all the South by movies that I watched this year. I used 00 because at a previous job, they made us take a personality test, and we did the Enneagram. And number 2 on there are 9 sections of the Enneagram. Number 2 is the loving person. And out of 100, I got 0.0 on the loving person. So I have worn that as a badge of pride ever since.
Well done, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. I am a bona fide sociopath, been proven by a written exam.
Did that exam ask what your sign was too? Is there an astrology symbol involved in it?
We paid this like shyster executive coach to administer the exam. There were 300 multiple choice questions,
and that
300
so
multiple
much.
choice questions.
It's fucking ridiculous.
So much money. This startup company does no longer exist.
I wonder why.
Yeah. But the dude was like telling me about my score afterward, and he was like, yeah, so, I talked to your coworkers, and like, seems like everybody likes you. And, I'm like, you've never seen this before, have you? And he's like, oh, I've been doing this forever. So I've seen everything. I was like, so that's a no.
Yeah.
You've not seen this before. But anyway, I don't know. I love movies. But that's about it.
That's in conclusion.
Yeah.
I love movies. Brilliant.
All right. I think that's going to bring this to a close. So Ryan is recommending.
The fuck were you recommending?
Something.
What is it
It
called?
was the
I can't remember
This
the fucking
Place
title.
Rules.
It's like
This Place Rules.
This
I
Place
remembered
Rules.
it before you did, and I'm drunk.
Ryan is recommending This Place Rules. John is recommending alcohol and Dune.
The spice must flow. He knows about the spice and the bourbon.
And I'm recommending film festivals. Go check out a film festival and watch some weird shit. Also, Dory Previn on the way to Where. Hopefully that gets distribution at some time and you can check it out. Really interesting portrayal of mental health and how one person found some solace in a way to move forward with
and
it.
I'm making another recommendation that you should join our fucking Discord. If you
yes.
go to a film festival, let us know what you saw that was rad so that we know that we should go see it too at some point.
Yes, please do that. I know Gino Hino has been to Cannes and Toronto, and so
I was so touched recently when Gino said that he started watching Shin Chan movies because I talked about Shin Chan on a Recommend or Refute. Gino, you're great, man. It was great. It warmed my heart. So glad you're enjoying those.
Yeah, Gino, if you've been to a festival lately, let us know what you've seen that you liked, or anybody else in the Discord, and we'll come down to Austin. Come check out an Austin festival.
Do it. Come on.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this week. I have been your host, Michael Dixon. With me, as always,
Ryan King. Coca-Cola has this like Coca-Cola Spiced that come out. They
were giving that out for free at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
I didn't have it, but apparently it's bad.
Nothing to do with Dune?
Everyone in my family says it's terrible, but for some reason I kind of like it. It tastes like the knockoff Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb that you get at like a Walmart or something.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which is somehow okay with me. All I have to say, and maybe John and no one else will appreciate this, is every time I go to drink it, my kids go, "Oh, are you having Coca-Cola? Spice!"
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
Like that.
Amazing.
And John Garcia.
Hey, everybody. Go ride a worm. Why not? Fuck it. Buy a popcorn bucket. Maybe get intimate with it. Who knows? Anything can happen. Dune!
This podcast is not sponsored by the Dune Popcorn Bucket.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.